Local residents recently shared some fascinating updates, noting that federal investigators were going door to door to ask about a massive blackout in the area. Specifically, they wanted to know about a total loss of internet exactly when the victim vanished during the early hours of February 1st, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning. At exactly 2:28 a.m. on February 1st, 2026, the cardiac device keeping the woman alive suddenly severed its digital connection. That vital piece of medical equipment resting right inside her chest relied on a continuous Bluetooth signal linked straight to her mobile phone. Once that transmission dropped permanently, detectives knew for a fact that she had been forcibly removed from her residence and dragged completely out of range. However, that single technical glitch is hardly the smoking gun, proving this was a premeditated strike. The real bombshell dropped 37 days into the search, when officials discovered a neighborhood utility box that was completely compromised, explicitly labeled as damaged rather than just accidentally broken or randomly vandalized. When pressed by Fox News journalist Michael Ruiz regarding its potential ties to the case, the Pima County authorities gave a remarkably direct answer. Law enforcement officially verified that the compromised equipment is actively being analyzed as a crucial piece of the puzzle. On March 8, 2026, marking day 37 of the search, authorities finally validated the chilling theory that seasoned detectives had been suspecting all along. This was absolutely no crime of opportunity, but rather a highly calculated, military-grade extraction carried out with absolute technical brilliance. Whoever snatched this beloved grandmother on the 1st of February possessed a terrifying level of expertise. The perpetrators were clearly masters of modern surveillance and residential protection systems. Armed with deep knowledge of local power grids, they flawlessly abducted an 84-year-old victim while erasing every possible electronic trace. The 84-year-old target, Nancy Ellen Guthrie, happens to be the mother of famous NBC Today broadcast star Savannah Guthrie, and she resided in the upscale Catalina foothills. Located just above Tucson, Arizona, this elite community boasts property values launching at $800,000 and skyrocketing well into the seven figures. It is an incredibly secure haven, boasting virtually zero crime, tight-knit residents, and an environment so safe that evening runs are completely routine. In a neighborhood like this, an older individual on her own would never feel the need to look over her shoulder. Pulling off a sophisticated abduction utilizing signal blockers and infrastructure destruction should be unthinkable here, yet it actually occurred. Taking it back to January 31st, 2026, the evening started normally with Nancy sharing a meal at the house of her daughter and son-in-law. After a perfectly mundane family gathering, her relatives gave her a ride home right around 9:45 p.m. She stepped inside, secured the deadbolts, and went to sleep, only to vanish into thin air shortly after, kicking off a frantic 37-day mystery. Before diving deep into today's massive breakthrough that flips this entire investigation upside down, make sure to hit that subscribe button and toggle your alerts if you are tracking this story. We are relentlessly documenting every single update, clue, and federal press release as soon as they drop to ensure the victim gets the justice she is owed. Her family desperately needs closure, so please join our community by subscribing right away. Smash the notification bell right now, since this mystery is completely unraveling, especially after Fox News correspondent Michael Ruiz fired a pointed question at the local authorities earlier today. He simply asked them about the strategically disabled communication hub located right near the victim's property. When asked if this finding was linked to the disappearance, local law enforcement fired back a swift reply. The department formally acknowledged that investigators are closely scrutinizing the equipment, though they refuse to provide any further context to the press. With the entire nation watching, police chiefs never validate random clues unless they hold serious weight. By acknowledging this detail, they are hinting at a major breakthrough. And understanding what these curbside units actually do reveals exactly why this is so huge. We are talking about those inconspicuous steel cabinets painted green or gray that sit at the edge of suburban intersections. While pedestrians ignore them constantly, those unassuming enclosures house the vital wiring that pumps broadband to the surrounding community. They essentially act as the digital beating heart of a subdivision, routing landlines and occasionally electricity to dozens of different families. The specific terminal in question sits just a stone's throw away from Nancy's front door. It was cleverly positioned out of direct sight lines, while still managing the telecommunications for her entire block in the Catalina foothills. The exact phrasing used by authorities speaks volumes here, because calling the equipment busted implies a total accident, while labeling it trashed hints at bored youths. Describing it as a glitch points to mechanical error. Yet intentionally classifying the box as compromised suggests a highly calculated, targeted strike that demands serious investigation. Authorities are keeping quiet about the timeline, the methods used to break in, and whatever forensic traces they managed to pull from the scene. However, when you piece this clue together with the feds canvassing the block over the last 7 days, a terrifying narrative starts taking shape. The reality is incredibly grim, especially after NBC journalists Liz Kreutz and Rebecca Cohen dropped a massive bombshell article on March 6th. Their investigation revealed that massive swarms of cops and federal agents were knocking on doors, completely ignoring the hunt for traditional physical clues. Instead of sweeping the bushes for weapons or torn fabrics, the authorities cornered every single homeowner to ask a highly targeted question. They demanded to know if anyone lost their broadband connection on the evening of the abduction or experienced network glitches right at 2:00 a.m. on the 1st of February was their primary focus, completely skipping the standard police questions about hearing weird noises or seeing shady characters. Was your connection acting up? Federal agents actually posed that precise question to folks living nearby, as verified by NBC News, while additionally sharing a startling revelation. A handful of residents around the block noticed their web access acting incredibly buggy during those late hours. These were not total blackouts or scheduled repairs, but rather weird hiccups, sudden drops, and completely mysterious local dead zones. The reason behind the Bureau's curiosity is clear now. Since the neighborhood's main communications terminal had been purposefully vandalized, we are looking at hard proof of a deliberate sabotage to sever the community's online and cellular lifelines during the very evening of Nancy's abduction. The motive was clearly to blind the surveillance setups, seeing as popular doorbell monitors require wireless internet to capture any footage. Without a signal, nothing backs up to the cloud, and zero notifications hit your mobile device, while automated deadbolts completely lose their ability to track who comes and goes. A dead network guarantees an empty history log, and residential security grids depend entirely on that digital handshake to notify dispatchers. Dropping that signal silences the alarms instantly, which is exactly how a kidnapper in 2026 would erase their electronic footprints before striking. You take out the wireless router, and you effectively blind every lens on the property. Wiping away all visual proof is step one for a crime like this, which perfectly aligns with the events, though the broken telecommunications hub is just a piece of the puzzle. While reporting on the ground in Tucson, News Nation journalist Brian Anton uncovered a fascinating nugget of information that ties everything together. The guy whose backyard touches Nancy's property line had a pair of security cameras installed on his rear exterior wall. Those devices pointed straight at her residence, operating perfectly 24/7 for ages, while continuously pushing motion clips to the cloud. They had operated flawlessly until roughly 2 a.m. on February 1st, when both units simultaneously died out of absolutely nowhere. That homeowner assured detectives that such a simultaneous system failure was entirely unprecedented. Yet, during the specific window when Nancy was dragged from her house just feet away, the video feed blacked out right as another bizarre event unfolded. The resident's normally heavy-sleeping dog bolted awake in the dead of night, despite usually staying completely knocked out until dawn. Yet that evening was a jarring exception. Right around 2 a.m., the pet grew extremely anxious and demanded to be let out into the yard, prompting its owner to open the door. Instead of doing its usual patrol or checking the grass, the canine just froze in place while glaring intensely at Nancy's place. It made zero noise, giving off the eerie impression of sensing an invisible presence that the disabled surveillance system completely missed. Consider how wildly coincidental that timing is, with the visual feeds dying precisely when she was targeted. Right as a disturbance spooked the animal into hyperfocus, the digital archives captured absolutely nothing. Retired federal investigators tracking the narrative are pointing toward a very particular gadget known as a Wi-Fi blocker. This piece of tech scrambles local network transmissions across a targeted zone, and ordinary citizens are strictly banned from owning them stateside. Despite being outlawed by the Federal Communications Commission, anyone can easily purchase these pocket-sized tools from international vendors on the web. They run on standard batteries and pack a serious punch by flooding the exact same bandwidths utilized by common household routers. By overwhelming the 2.4 and 5 GHz channels, these units easily drown out authentic connections. That leaves security monitors blind and intelligent home setups paralyzed, with the blackout radius hinging entirely on the hardware's strength. A basic portable blocker easily covers 30 to 50 feet, whereas premium variations can stretch past 100 feet, making densely packed suburbs incredibly vulnerable. Placing just a single jammer in the right spot could instantly neutralize the high-tech defenses of several adjacent households. You would see front porch lenses totally disconnected, Nest monitors disabled, and intelligent entryways completely failing to roll tape. Digital deadbolts stop updating their access histories while wireless alarm backups crash completely. A terrifying reality that former bureau expert Maureen O'Connell discussed with Fox News. She noted that the sheer technical brilliance is terrifying, since pairing a signal blocker with physical infrastructure tampering goes way beyond a rookie mistake. The perpetrator clearly possessed an advanced, expert-tier grasp of modern communications gear. They definitively knew the internal language of residential defense networks and the exact methods to bypass them. On top of that, former crime scene analyst Betsy Brantner-Smith shared another chilling perspective with Fox News Digital. She suspects that law enforcement already has their eyes on prime targets but is deliberately keeping the details hushed to avoid jeopardizing the probe. The expert additionally theorized that the perpetrators likely doubled back to Nancy's property following the initial snatch and grab. Sneaking back to the scene ensures they did not drop any clues while monitoring the police response to validate their sinister blueprint, proving this was no random crime of passion. We are looking at a highly organized, icy-cool professional operation, and the chronological breakdown of that evening confirms it entirely. Let us trace the steps on February 1st, 2026. Where at exactly 1:47 in the morning, Nancy is peacefully dreaming in her silent room. Meanwhile, the lens by her front door catches a chilling sight of an intruder lurking on the patio with a ski mask hiding his features. He is rocking dark hand coverings, a visible sidearm strapped to his waist, and carrying a distinct Ozark Trail rucksack slung over his shoulders. That specific dark and silver bag is famously a Walmart exclusive, yet the suspect just idles there, boldly staring straight into the lens without a care in the world. He extends a hand toward the lens just before the recording abruptly cuts out, with her front porch security feed going totally dark at precisely 1:47 a.m., which the Puma County Sheriff's Department noted was followed by widespread web outages in the neighborhood right around 2 in the morning based on federal tipsters. Several folks living nearby suddenly noticed their home networks dropping, dealing with temporary signal loss and random router hiccups. The guy living directly behind Nancy saw his twin security feeds die completely for the very first time, right as his restless puppy started begging to go out into the yard. Plenty of other folks on the block probably suffered the exact same tech blackouts, but were simply snoring right through the chaos, bringing us to 2:28 a.m. inside Nancy's master suite. Her cellular device is resting quietly on the bedside table, fully plugged into the wall with a blank display. The medical device surgically placed inside her chest routinely connects via wireless signal every couple of hours to upload vital signs and monitor for any dangerous pulse fluctuations. That life-saving implant had been communicating perfectly for ages, until it attempted another routine upload at 2:28 in the morning, desperately looking for a paired device. It kept looking until the pairing totally failed, proving that Nancy's internal monitor had traveled way too far from her mobile device, a terrifying detail that doctors quickly clarified. Whenever an implanted defibrillator drops its wireless link, specialists know it comes down to 3 possible scenarios, starting with the unit getting surgically ripped right out of a patient's chest. Extracting that hardware takes an operating room, and absolutely wouldn't occur during a frantic midnight break-in, leaving the grim second option of sudden cardiac death. Once a heartbeat flatlines, the broadcasts obviously halt. Which brings us to the third possibility where the victim gets dragged completely out of their smartphone's local radio range. Those wireless signals generally only travel around 30 feet max, usually even less when bouncing off drywall and furniture. Yet Nancy's mobile was still sitting safe inside her bedroom. The fact that her heartbeat logs failed to upload at exactly 2:28 a.m. points to a single chilling truth, which is that our victim had been forcibly pushed past that 30-foot bubble. She was undeniably gone from her own property, snatched away into the night by unknown intruders, leading directly to a crucial timestamp of 2:36 in the morning. A private doorbell lens located 2.5 miles away caught an automobile cruising down a sneaky shortcut, slipping quietly out of the Catalina foothills toward the massive intersection at East River Road. Former New York City police investigator Pat Brown sat down with his expert squad to carefully scrub through those grainy neighborhood clips. The seasoned crew closely examined the mystery ride, paying special attention to its top slope, glass shapes, and the distinct glow of its taillights. Detectives feel pretty confident they're looking at a Kia Soul thanks to its uniquely angled top and tall rear illumination, But the real smoking gun here is the exact clock reading. That camera triggered at 2:36 a.m., a mere 8 minutes after Nancy's medical implant severed its wireless connection, meaning 8 minutes had passed since she was dragged out her front door. An 8-minute window provides more than enough breathing room for kidnappers to hustle an elderly lady out of her residence, shove her inside a getaway ride, and cover 2.5 miles of asphalt. You could pull that off while cruising below the speed limit on winding side streets, though Sheriff Chris Nanos mentioned to NBC News that investigators are sorting through literally hundreds of thousands of cars cruising Tucson that evening. Still, you absolutely cannot overlook how perfectly that tight timeline lines up with the kidnapping. Her internal monitor drops out at 2:28 a.m. when she exits the property, followed by a suspicious ride spotted 2.5 miles away at 2:36 a.m., creating a perfect 8-minute escape gap. Meanwhile, practically every single wireless network surrounding Nancy's subdivision was throwing total fits and dropping connections left and right. Security lenses went completely blind at the exact same moment a local telecommunications pedestal got intentionally wrecked, a shocking detail that just hit the press wire this afternoon. Nobody pulls off a stunt like this by sheer chance, meaning this was an incredibly well-orchestrated hit that demanded some serious tactical foresight. The perpetrators clearly knew that pulling off a snatch and grab in a wealthy zip code during 2026 is impossible when literally every front door has a smart doorbell watching. You simply cannot sneak past automated hubs tracking every turned deadbolt, especially when nosy neighbors have their properties locked down with high-definition digital watchdogs. Criminals are forced to blind the tech grid before making a move, so Nancy's captors deployed a signal blocker to instantly fry the local video streams right as they walked up. They also physically smashed up a neighborhood fiber hub to guarantee a wider connectivity blackout, blending both brute force and electronic warfare into one terrifying assault. These guys were smart enough to realize modern surveillance sends its feeds straight to remote servers, figuring out exactly how to jam those frequencies without ever laying a finger on the hardware. Their time management was downright surgical, utilizing a tight 41-minute gap stretching precisely from 1:47 all the way to 2:28 in the morning. They struck during the deadest hours of the night when folks are completely out cold and streets are totally deserted, giving that masked phantom exactly 41 minutes from his 1:47 a.m. arrival to silence the alarms, break inside, overpower an 84-year-old victim, and vanish by 2:28 a.m. The crew had their getaway map memorized flawlessly, which explains why that suspicious car spotted at 2:36 in the morning was avoiding the busy thoroughfares altogether. They stuck entirely to obscure side paths, leading one federal agent to tell Fox News that nobody accidentally drives down those hidden cuts without heavily scouting the terrain beforehand. This definitely wasn't some opportunistic thug cruising the blocks hoping to score an easy payday on a whim. The perpetrators possessed intimate knowledge of the local layout, expertly navigating from Nancy's subdivision to a massive arterial highway while actively dodging every single digital eye along the way. The forensic clues definitely back up this theory, especially after cops found hand coverings 2 miles from the crime scene that looked exactly like the ones worn by the prowler on camera. Investigators managed to pull biological material directly from one of those discarded mitts. Sheriff Nanos announced on March 5th that the swab pinged a nearby diner worker, who was quickly ruled out as a totally innocent bystander, though crime scene techs are still swabbing the remaining items. They actually bypassed the usual Federal Bureau laboratories entirely, shipping the evidence straight to an independent Florida clinic known for pulling microscopic genetic traces from heavily compromised samples. The reason for outsourcing the job comes down to complex biology, as Sheriff Nanos confirmed to NBC News that detectives found tangled genetic markers scattered across Nancy's residence. We are talking about severely blended bodily fluids, meaning the biological blueprints of several different individuals got mashed up into one confusing microscopic puddle. Untangling a messy genetic cocktail like that to isolate a clear suspect profile is an absolute nightmare for scientists, often dragging the lab work out for endless weeks or even several agonizing months. High-tech forensic facilities apply cutting-edge methods to extract specific genetic signatures, crafting reliable profiles that can be run against national registries. According to Nanos, that blended genetic material might originate from a handful of culprits present at the estate, heavily implying a coordinated crew rather than a lone wolf. Retired federal investigator Maureen O'Connell explained to Fox News Digital the unique dynamic created when a whole crew gets involved. Slapping a $1 million bounty on the table turns up the heat immensely on those culprits. Assuming a whole crew orchestrated this crime, which seems highly likely, They are currently sweating bullets in a pressure cooker, and it is merely a matter of who cracks first under that intense heat. Paranoia eventually creeps in, making a suspect wonder if their buddies will spill the beans first and claim the cash while they take the fall. The terrifying thought of catching a life sentence while accomplices walk away with $1 million is exactly the kind of stress that fractures loyalties and forces betrayals. O'Connell strongly suspects a layered conspiracy is at play here, featuring a mastermind who mapped out the entire plot from the shadows. Alongside the brains, you would need muscle to pull it off, plus a logistics person supplying getaway cars or a safe house, all of which aligns perfectly with the technical evidence. Deploying signal blockers, tampering with electrical panels, navigating alarm grids, and memorizing the local streets for a clean getaway require serious tactical preparation. Such calculated precision points directly toward either military-grade experience or a syndicate of specialists pooling their talents, leading to one glaring mystery. Why target Nancy Guthrie in the first place? Especially considering the perpetrators have fired off several extortion messages. While the relatives received at least one direct communication, TMZ also intercepted a letter, which the outlet characterized as an incredibly complex extortion threat. The culprits demanded payment in digital coins, deliberately avoiding Bitcoin due to its easily trackable ledger. Instead, they insisted on privacy-focused crypto tokens, pairing that demand with horrific, graphic details about the consequences of ignoring their terms. That chilling document was immediately handed over to federal agents by TMZ. Yet the biggest lingering question remains unanswered. Did the family actually pay up? Her loved ones are keeping absolutely quiet about the money, and 37 days into this nightmare, Nancy remains nowhere to be found. Assuming this was strictly a cash grab, we should have seen some closure by this point, with the victim returning home safely after a successful transaction. Alternatively, if no money changed hands, it defies logic to think these criminals would continue harboring an 84-year-old captive, requiring cardiac support indefinitely. Perhaps extortion was never the main goal, and detectives are sitting on classified intelligence regarding a hidden link, tying the victim's inner circle to the abductors. The local sheriff, Nanos, continues to tread very lightly whenever he addresses the media to protect the integrity of the search. However, on March 2nd, he dropped a fascinating nugget during an NBC News broadcast, claiming his team is undeniably inching toward a massive breakthrough. He reiterated his unwavering stance from day one, expressing total certainty that law enforcement will ultimately crack this puzzle wide open. By repeatedly emphasizing how near they are to the finish line, rather than just citing routine legwork, he strongly implies authorities are holding back crucial secrets. Furthermore, the sheriff openly shared his gut feeling that Nancy Guthrie has somehow managed to survive this horrific ordeal. He admitted this optimism stems largely from his own hopeful nature and an inherent trust in a positive outcome for the victim. Still, he acknowledges the grim reality of the situation. Despite not needing daily pills, a great sign for an 84-year-old, her heart implant complicates things immensely. If her captors have locked her away without any sort of clinical supervision or emergency medical resources, the danger naturally skyrockets. Her physical well-being might crash rapidly, and after 37 agonizing days, the mathematical odds of a safe rescue diminish with every sunrise. Nevertheless, the manhunt remains in overdrive, especially after a major strategic shift occurred on day 33 of the investigation. Prior to that pivot, practically the entire roster of detectives at the Pima County precinct had been thrown at this single kidnapping. Flooding the zone with maximum manpower simply could not last, as everyday felonies continued piling up across the county with other citizens awaiting justice. Consequently, leadership assembled an exclusive strike team, pulling 4 seasoned detectives and a supervisor entirely off their normal precinct rotations. This select squad relocated to the federal building in Tucson, zeroing in exclusively on finding Nancy without any other daily distractions. Tapping into the national intelligence grid allows them to push physical clues through elite government laboratories way quicker than county tech could ever manage. They now have direct pipelines into the sprawling CODIS genetic network, alongside top-tier profilers who eat, sleep, and breathe abduction psychology. Cyber specialists are dissecting the signal interference and alarm bypasses, while forensic accountants hunt down any digital coin transfers just in case the family quietly paid. Meanwhile, deep-dive researchers are constantly connecting the dots by running massive data sweeps across countless information streams. Housing this unit at the Bureau's headquarters rather than the local precinct is a massive deal, indicating that federal authorities have fully grabbed the wheel. Although they are partnering closely with regional cops, the feds are clearly running the show with their vast jurisdictional power, and that aggressive approach is yielding solid dividends. Uncovering that tampered electrical panel this afternoon is absolute proof that, even 37 days later, the trail is far from cold. Detectives are actively unearthing fresh clues to strengthen their dossier, a mission bolstered by the Bureau's hotline 1-800 call FBI launched back in early February. During those initial weeks, the switchboards completely melted down under the weight of tens of thousands of frantic citizens reporting allegedly shady behavior. Countless callers swore they spotted the missing woman or managed to identify the disguised perpetrator, though the majority of these well-meaning tips led nowhere. One individual was absolutely convinced they noticed Nancy at a Phoenix fueling station, which proved false, while another erroneously accused their next-door neighbor of being the masked assailant. That guy was definitely cleared, but sifting through all these leads eats up a massive chunk of time. Law enforcement has to record, analyze, and chase down every single plausible clue, though the flood of information has really dried up lately. On March 5th, Matt Finn from Fox News shared that federal agents noticed a huge drop-off in public leads following the early rush, which lines up with a great point made by CNN's Josh Campbell. Getting buried under a mountain of useless information actually throws a massive wrench into the entire investigative process. When 90% of these calls lead straight to a brick wall, detectives are wasting 90% of their shift running down phantom clues instead of focusing on solid proof. They need to be looking at genetic markers and security videos to build a rock-solid profile against targets they might already have in their crosshairs. A drop in incoming calls could actually be a silver lining, hinting that the authorities are finally zeroing in on a specific angle. They are likely grinding away at targeted clues under the radar, like that disguised guy caught on NY's front steps when the feds shared those Ring camera clips. Witnesses peg him somewhere between 5'9" and 5'10" with a totally normal physique, but he was rocking some seriously unique gear that should give him away. The dude had a custom firearm rig strapped to his side, plus the video clearly shows a ring flashing on his little finger. He was hauling around a black and gray Ozark Trail book bag, leading retired federal agent Jennifer Coffin Daffer to conclude that this guy sticks out like a sore thumb. From his distinct facial hair and eyebrow shape to his wardrobe choices and that flashy jewelry, he is incredibly easy to spot. Putting all those puzzle pieces together makes me absolutely certain that at least one person out there knows exactly who we are looking at. A friend or neighbor definitely recognizes this suspect, yet absolutely nobody is speaking up, which makes you wonder if they are scared, fiercely loyal, or somehow mixed up in the crime themselves. The Federal Bureau also caught on to another highly suspicious detail. An insider told Fox News Digital that one specific camera snap happened on an entirely separate day, proving the masked prowler scoped out NY's place well before February 1st to map out his attack. Jason Pack, a former supervisory agent for the Bureau, explained to the network that this totally rules out any spur-of-the-moment decision. It shows a chilling level of criminal intelligence. You are looking at the classic signature of a mastermind who plotted every move, which completely changes the legal game since that kind of cold calculation bumps up the charges to a whole new level. Showing up on a security feed again and again while actively trying to hide your face is just a massive blunder. It basically hands the detectives a golden ticket to figure out exactly who he is. That brings us to February 24th, 2026. Savannah Guthrie set up her smartphone and delivered a devastating message to the public that no child should ever have to utter, admitting her mom might not be alive anymore. Just hold on a second and remember that we are talking about Savannah Guthrie, the veteran NBC Today Show host with a massive journalism career under her belt. This woman brings the daily headlines to countless households across the country every single morning. She has reported on horrific events and kept a straight face while talking to heartbroken relatives. Except this time, the nightmare belongs to her and involves her own flesh and blood. Now she is openly facing the grim reality that Nancy has likely passed away. She knows that simply recovering her remains to give her a proper burial might be the only silver lining left, and you can practically feel the heartbreak radiating through her remarkably calm voice in that recording. She admitted that they are well aware she could be missing forever, and her life might have already ended. It is entirely possible she is already reunited with her creator, celebrating up in heaven alongside her parents, her deeply missed brother Pierce, and their own father. While the family is ready to make peace with that tragic outcome if necessary, they desperately need answers and want her brought back to them. Just imagine the sheer emotional strength required to film that vulnerable moment and broadcast it out to the entire internet. Savannah made sure to hammer home the massive bounty, noting that $1 million is on the table as a secret cash payout for whoever steps up to bring her back. Informants can stay completely off the grid while bagging a straight cash payout. Federal authorities threw another $100,000 into the pot for any solid leads that crack the case, locate NY, or lock up the culprits. That brings the grand total to $1.1 million, easily making it a record-breaking bounty for an Arizona disappearance. Nobody has grabbed that bag yet, meaning the secret is tightly kept among the perpetrators, or the witnesses are just completely terrified to talk. Even with a massive cash prize and total privacy guaranteed, nobody is biting, though O'Connell pointed out that big money always breeds serious paranoia among co-conspirators. Sooner or later, one of them is going to start daydreaming about that payday and second-guessing their loyalties. A partner in crime will eventually run the numbers and cave under the temptation. On March 2nd, Savannah swung by her mom's house alongside her sister Annie and her brother-in-law to take in the beautiful roadside tribute filled with yellow blooms. Neighbors spent weeks dropping off items in NY's favorite shade, covering the yard with heartfelt notes, glowing candles, pictures, and spiritual sentiments. The three family members added their own beautiful bouquet to the pile, along with a deeply personal written message. Even though we are living through an absolute nightmare right now, our love is still shining through. So we just want to say how much we desperately miss you, Mom. Savannah shared a snapshot on Instagram to let everyone know they could truly feel the massive wave of support pouring in from their Tucson neighbors all the way to folks across the nation. We truly beg you to keep us in your daily thoughts and to hold on to hope alongside our entire family. On the 5th of March, Savannah caught a flight out of Arizona, heading straight for New York, stepping foot inside the Today Show building for the very first time since her mom vanished. Sharing her feelings with her coworkers, she mentioned, "I just needed to show everyone that I am staying strong. My optimism hasn't faded, and my spirit remains unbroken as I cling tightly to my personal beliefs. My conviction hasn't wavered one bit," she added, before a representative from the Today Show issued an official press release regarding the situation. Even though she fully intends to get back in front of the cameras eventually, her current priority revolves solely around comforting her relatives and doing everything possible to track Nancy down, meaning her exact comeback date is totally up in the air. Savannah is going to resume her broadcasting duties whenever she feels up to it, whether that happens after this nightmare concludes or if getting back to the daily grind actually aids her recovery process. Regardless of whether Savannah is currently stationed on the East Coast or out west, the massive hunt for answers pushes forward as we officially hit day 37. We are absolutely still in the dark about several massive details, mainly the true identity of that disguised guy, because surely somebody recognizes those specific facial features, that jewelry, or his highly unique firearm carrying case. Not a single soul has stepped into the spotlight to share what they know, leaving us entirely clueless about the exact make and model of the getaway ride. Experts suspect that the automobile caught on tape at 2:36 in the morning might be a Kia Soul, though they haven't been able to lock down a definitive confirmation yet. Sheriff Nano confirmed his team is currently analyzing that specific lead, while simultaneously sifting through hundreds of thousands of other rides, leading everyone to wonder if any extortion money was actually handed over. The culprits mailed out several highly complex extortion demands, yet there isn't a shred of public proof regarding a cash drop, meaning if a transaction actually occurred, the authorities and the relatives are keeping things completely under wraps. If zero cash was exchanged, you really have to wonder what the entire motivation was behind this crime, which leads us straight to the most terrifying question of all. Is Nancy still breathing? Could she be locked away in some isolated desert compound, trapped inside a suburban residence miles away, or perhaps even smuggled way down south past the Mexican border? Is she trapped roughly 60 miles from home, or did she tragically succumb to health issues after surviving 37 agonizing days without access to her essential medications? While Sheriff Nano remains remarkably optimistic about finding her alive, the cold, hard statistics prove that her chances of survival drop drastically with every single sunset. We are talking about an 84-year-old woman dependent on a cardiac device. And even though she was incredibly fit for a senior citizen, the clock is absolutely ticking if she's currently cut off from her doctors. The good news is that detectives refused to throw in the towel on this 8th of March, 2026, which marks day 37 and brings a crucial new clue regarding a vandalized electrical panel. Officials over at the Puma County Sheriff's Department have officially verified that they are currently scrutinizing this busted equipment as a major piece of the ongoing puzzle. When you start connecting all these scattered dots, a chilling narrative emerges that perfectly aligns with the signal-blocking device hypothesis that forensic specialists have been floating around lately. Just think about how all the doorbell surveillance lenses on the block mysteriously lost connection right around 2 in the morning in a completely unprecedented glitch. A local pup suddenly woke up to fixate on Nancy's property, her heart monitor flatlined exactly at 2:28 in the morning, and a suspicious car popped up 2.5 miles down the road just 8 minutes after that. Investigators also uncovered blended genetic material, hinting at a group effort, alongside footage showing that disguised prowler doing extensive reconnaissance around the property on several different occasions. Between those incredibly complex extortion letters and the sheer technical genius required to totally blindfold a modern alarm grid, it becomes glaringly obvious that this was never just a crime of opportunity. This operation was calculated down to the smallest detail and pulled off with absolute digital precision, heavily implying the culprits had specialized backgrounds and knew exactly how to bypass local alarms and neighborhood grids. They definitely memorized the local streets and ideal getaway paths, likely working as a coordinated team, but that $1.1 million bounty is bound to crank up the heat on everyone involved. Assuming we are dealing with a whole crew of criminals, it is basically guaranteed that at least one of those guys is going to get greedy and try to cash in on that massive payout. Eventually, a co-conspirator will realize that staying loyal to Nancy's kidnapper simply isn't worth sacrificing a lifetime of guaranteed wealth. And the second they dial that tip line, this entire mystery shatters. But until that glorious moment happens, the dedicated strike team is keeping their noses to the grindstone without taking a single break. We have a sergeant and 4 specialized investigators operating around the clock from the Tucson Federal Bureau, utilizing national assets, genetic testing facilities, and video experts who are dissecting every single frame of tape. Criminal psychologists are actively sketching out psychological blueprints of the perpetrators, and even after 37 agonizing days of searching, the momentum hasn't slowed down one bit. The crew is incredibly still unearthing fresh clues, such as that sabotaged power box located right down the street from Nancy's residence. This concrete proof perfectly backs up the idea that her kidnapping was a highly calculated strike, driving the ongoing hunt for justice forward. Nancy's relatives are stuck in an agonizing holding pattern, fully aware that a specific individual out there holds the exact secrets needed to finally bring her back to her loved ones. If you are sitting on absolutely any details regarding the vanishing of Nancy Guthrie, you need to reach out to federal authorities without a second of hesitation. Just dial 1-800, call the FBI, which translates to 1-800-225-5324, or feel free to drop your leads on the web over at tips.fbi.gov. You are totally allowed to keep your identity a secret, and they can even hand over the $1.1 million bounty in pure cash if your intel directly leads to Nancy's rescue. If you have been keeping tabs on this devastating ordeal, make sure you hit that subscribe button and switch on your channel alerts right now. We are tracking every single breakthrough, fresh clue, and official press release because Nancy Guthrie is owed true justice, and her loved ones absolutely deserve some closure. Drop your opinions in the comments section below. Let me know if you buy into that signal blocking hypothesis, and tell me if you truly believe Nancy is still out there surviving. I would love to hear your take on that vandalized power panel, so share your theories, and definitely smash that like button if you want to see these criminals locked up for good. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and remember that somebody walking the streets knows exactly where Nancy Guthrie is. So if you are that person, pick up the phone because her family is desperate for your help. On day 37 of the search for Nancy Guthrie, investigators confirmed what profilers had long suspected. A utility box near her Tucson home had been deliberately sabotaged on the night of the abduction. This was not a robbery. This was a military-grade operation. At 1:47 a.m., the suspect appeared on Nancy's porch camera and reached toward the lens. The feed went dark. By 2 a.m., multiple neighbors reported simultaneous internet outages. At 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker lost its Bluetooth connection to her phone. She was gone. A neighbor's 2 cameras, which had never failed before, blacked out simultaneously at the exact moment of the abduction. Their dog woke from a dead sleep and fixated silently on Nancy's property. Every digital witness on that block was neutralized at once. Investigators believe the suspect used a Wi-Fi jammer, a device that floods local wireless frequencies and blinds every connected camera, doorbell, alarm, and smart lock within range. These devices are illegal in the US, but are easily purchased from overseas vendors online. Blended DNA from multiple individuals was recovered inside Nancy's home. The sheriff confirmed the samples are so complex, they required an outside specialist laboratory in Florida. Mixed genetic profiles from a crime scene point toward a coordinated crew, not a single attacker acting alone. Surveillance footage shows the suspect had visited Nancy's property on at least one separate occasion before February 1. He was conducting reconnaissance. Former FBI agent Jason Pack confirmed, this level of pre-planning eliminates any possibility of a spontaneous crime and elevates the legal charges significantly. Asterisk. When a crime requires signal jamming, infrastructure sabotage, coordinated surveillance, and a rehearsed escape route, someone in the perpetrator's life knows what they are capable of. That person needs to come forward now. Asterisk. If someone you know has specialized knowledge of communication systems, alarm bypasses, local power grids, or tactical gear, and behaved unusually after February 1, contact the FBI immediately at 1-800-CALL-FBI or tips.fbi.gov. Your tip can be completely anonymous. The suspect on camera wore a distinctive firearm holster, a ring on his little finger, and carried a black and gray Ozark Trail backpack. His eyebrow shape and facial structure are visible in the footage. If you recognize any of these details, report it. You may be the only person who can. A reward of over $1.1 million is available for information leading directly to Nancy's safe return and the arrest of those responsible. Former FBI analyst Maureen O'Connell notes that large rewards fracture the loyalty of co-conspirators. Someone in that crew is already doing the math. Protect your home's digital infrastructure with redundant layers. Wi-Fi-dependent cameras are vulnerable to jamming. Supplement them with cellular backup devices, local storage systems, and motion-activated lighting that operates independently of your internet connection. If you care for an elderly person living alone, ensure their medical devices are registered with a monitoring service that can detect signal loss and dispatch a welfare check automatically. Nancy's pacemaker disconnect gave investigators their most precise timestamp. That data should trigger an emergency response, not just a log entry. A dedicated 4-detective strike team is now operating full-time out of the Tucson FBI field office, with access to national DNA databases, criminal psychologists, forensic accountants, and cyber specialists. After 37 days, new evidence is still surfacing. This investigation is not slowing down. Savannah Guthrie filmed herself telling the world her mother may already be gone, and then asked people to keep hoping anyway. That is not just a grieving daughter speaking. That is a journalist who knows what the statistics say, choosing to stay standing for her family regardless. Nancy's neighbors filled her yard with yellow flowers, her favorite color. Handwritten notes, candles, and photographs lined the path to a home that still has its lights off. An entire community is holding vigil for a woman they may never have met but refuse to stop fighting for. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old and dependent on a cardiac implant. Every day without medical supervision is a medical risk. Every hour the tip lines stay quiet is an hour her family cannot get back. The window to bring her home is still open, but it will not stay open forever. Somebody in Tucson, or close to it, knows who wore that holster, who bought that backpack, and who knew enough about fiber infrastructure to sabotage a utility box before committing this crime. That person is living with this secret right now. Nancy Guthrie deserves to come home. Her family deserves the truth. And whoever is holding that secret deserves to ask themselves one question. What would it take for someone to stay silent about your mother? Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Do it now.